Okay, very good. So, everybody, welcome. Very happy to have you here. It's so nice to have so many people registered and hope that everybody gets on in time. This is such an important topic, and it's one that touches all of us. And as I hope you know, this is the last of a series of 3 workshops that have been designed by Chris to help villages create their own programs on these important issues. Villages are uniquely positioned to reach people and to help them talk about and work through their own preferences for the end of life. Now, some of you may have joined hoping to have a chance to talk about your personal thoughts and concerns, but this program isn't going to get into that. We really hope that you'll all be thinking,
oh, I can't hear.
Can somebody mute that person? So I hope you'll be thinking, what can my village do about this? And how can I help my village develop programs that will help me? And Chris is going to tell you how. So yes, Chris has been our speaker and the instigator of all of this. And I will be putting his very impressive bio into the chat in a bit for you to see. And as some of you know, he has been leading a discussion group on aging well and dying and death for the Bethesda metro area village for several years now. And what's more important is that Chris and his wife, Gail Shearer, have created and funded the Finishing Strong Award with WAVE to encourage villages to hold more discussions about end-of-life issues. They've endowed a $5,000 award that will be open to WAVE member villages in the fall. And we hope today's session will enable WAVE member villages to develop really good proposals for their own villages. The recording for this session and for the previous sessions and all of the very rich array of materials that Chris has so kindly given us are all posted on our website, wavevillages.org/Finishing Strong Award. And I will be putting that up on the chat also. So don't worry if you didn't get that. So again, I'm so happy to have you here, Chris. Take it away.
Thank you so much. And just a quick thing, Nancy, as everybody could see in the chat, says I can't hear a word. Nancy, are you hearing better now? No. Yeah, Nancy.
She's also muted.
Yes.
So she can't hear you.
Well, she might be able to hear me, but we can't hear her.
Oh, okay.
But is there anything we can do for Nancy?
Chris, I had asked her to check the volume on her machine because the audio is working for for the rest Nancy, of this, so it's probably on her machine.
Yeah. So Nancy, if you can hear me, just do a thumbs up sign like that. Can you hear me? Put your thumbs up like this. Put your thumbs up. Okay. All right. That's all right. Nancy, just assuming you can hear me, we think the problem may be on your machine. So say me, good luck. And I see Seal there. Seal, hello, nice to see you. Hi, Seal. All right, we are going to get going here, but I do want you to look at to follow Nancy's example of putting things in the chat in the chat room in the chat. So if you have comments or questions, there you go. All right. So our goal, let's get going. Our goal with this workshop, this third workshop, is to discuss how villages can develop programs on aging, death, and dying. And as Mary Jo just said, my wife Gail and I have created this $5,000 Finishing Strong Award in WAVE to encourage villages to develop programs in this area. The award will open in September, and submissions from villages of all sizes will be welcome. Okay, so how do programs on aging, death, and dying get started? How do they get started? Sometimes, and this is what happened to the Bethesda metro area village where I am, sometimes a village member will take the lead and after consulting with colleagues, announce they are launching a shared interest group, or SIG, shared interest group, SIG, on aging, death, and dying. And the first meeting, they'll say, will be on such and such a date, and so on. So that's often how these programs get launched. Somebody just takes the initiative and just announces it. And that first meeting might be on a topic like hospice, or it might be a general discussion to determine what village members are interested in. Now, if no leader emerges, the village board might meet and brainstorm how to get things moving. Possible questions to stimulate that discussion are: what does a thriving older age look like? How do you live a life that matters? What does a good death look like? Why is talking about death and dying taboo? And what is the best way to find out what village members are most interested in? Villagers can discuss death and dying generally, or they can meet to discuss a specific topic like advance directives, ethical wills, caregiving, decluttering, palliative care, death doulas, or green burials, or whatever. I can imagine villages organizing small, intimate meetings where members talk about their feelings about aging, death, and dying, and have a chance to express their hopes and fears to a trusted group. Now, let me pause now, and I will do this throughout the presentation in the next hour. Let me pause to see if there are any comments, reactions, or questions. And I encourage you to have a piece of paper next to you, and a scrap of paper and a pencil. And as an idea occurs to you, to jot it down. Don't lose it. Jot it down. And then you can raise it in the chat, or you can just get my attention by waving, or you can go down below to the reactions box. And you click on the reaction box and you'll see raise a hand, and you can that's another way to get my attention. Or you can just go in the chat room and say, please call on me. That'll work as well. Any of those ways work. I'm looking at the chat room now and not seeing any questions. And by the way, Nancy, I hope you are able to hear me. Can you hear me, Nancy? Good. Great. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Does anybody have, at this point, and you can ask me about anything you like, anything on your mind, or make a comment. Anybody have a question or a comment or anything at this? Yes. Liz. Hi, Liz. Yes. Capital Health.
Here. Hi, Chris. Did you include, or have you included, one of the ways of bringing up this topic is having a death cafe? Do you know what that is, Chris?
I do.
Okay.
I attend them, and I will mention it at the end.
Okay.
And it's a good idea. And some villages may want to create a death cafe.
I think we do about 4 a year here at the
okay.
village.
Okay. Well done. Well done. Well,
Yeah.
they are wonderful. I think very highly of them. Death dinners is a similar concept. And Liz, thank you for bringing that up. No, I endorse it. I think it's great. And if a village or a group of villages want to start a death cafe and invite other village members to, I think it's wonderful. It's great. Thank you, Liz. Okay. Good. Well, thank you. Okay, so let's go on. Now, one topic that a village might want to pick is how to live well. We know that living well and with a purpose increases the chances of a good death. Village programs on living well might involve exercise classes, plant-based cooking classes, how to build friendships, volunteer opportunities, and other ideas for helping members live healthier, more active, more engaged lives. Another topic is decluttering. We found this in Bethesda Metro Village to be a very popular subject. You might invite a decluttering expert to help members get started. A village might consider retaining a decluttering expert to help its members. I can also imagine a village program where members meet to discuss decluttering, share their stories, and help each other. So again, now let me pause again for comments or questions or reactions. I've just talked about living well and decluttering, but you can ask questions about anything or make comments about anything on your mind, or you may have questions about the Finishing Strong Award. I welcome those. Heidi writes in the chat, let's see, Heidi says, I have no idea of what either is. So Heidi, I don't follow that question. Oh, you talk about death cafes and death dinners?
Yeah, those two, I just thought, well, they didn't.
Yeah.
Explain.
Yeah. No, Heidi, thank you for asking. Please, I want all of you to ask as many questions as you want. And Heidi, thank you so much. So a death cafe, people gather together. There's no real agenda. It's not a therapeutic group. It's people just coming to share their thoughts. It's usually gently facilitated by some just to keep the conversation going and raise prompting questions, and it's very informal. It's just a chance for people to get to know each other and share their ideas. Death dinners are very similar. It's over a dinner, over good food, because food, when people eat, they tend to loosen up, and a glass of wine helps to loosen people up and feel less tight, less taut. And so anyway, that's what a death dinner and a death cafe is. They're just essentially names for meetings where people come together to discuss aging, death, and dying. So Heidi, I hope that's helpful. Is that helpful, Heidi?
Yeah, I guess to be more specific, is it like their fears of dying, or what is it like to be dying, or discussing experiences with either their wife or husband dying, or their father, etc.
Yeah, Heidi, that's excellent. Yeah, it could be any of those things.
Okay.
It's whatever people want to talk about. They're very unstructured, very free and easy and open to anything. So all those things you mentioned are possible topics. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very, very good. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome. Now, by the way, one question that Mary Jo, I sent her an advanced copy of my presentation so she could see it, and Mary Jo had a question. She said Chris, you sometimes say or often say, bring in an outside expert. You'll hear me say that several times. And Mary Jo said to me, how do you find a good person? Where do you look? How do you judge their knowledge and suitability? And that's such a good question. So let me answer that right now. What you do is you get on your email or a phone and you call someone to ask, like someone like me. You might call me up and say, Chris, we want to do a meeting on decluttering. Can you recommend a speaker? Or and I might say, well, yes, here's this person, Fred Smith, or if you're looking for a palliative care doctor, try Katie McGrail at Suburban, or so, or you might call up Mary Jo, who's very knowledgeable and well connected, and say, Mary Jo, do you know of a speaker in this, or can you? And Mary Jo will give you some leads. Or you might call someone like Tashi, who's the co-chair of the Montgomery County Palliative Care and End of Life Coalition. There are lots of people around who can just be very helpful and supportive. So and if you're stuck, just call me. Just email me. Oh, Mary Jo, you might put my email address in the chat room so people.
What happened?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. I'm hearing someone talk, so please mute yourself. If you're not talking, please mute yourself. So if you're looking for a speaker and you're not stuck as to what to do, just call me up or call somebody up, and within a couple of phone calls, you'll be able to track down somebody who can come in pro bono. It's whatever, pro bono and help. Okay. So let me press on. It's essential to complete an advance directive. Decide on a healthcare agent and share our preferences for end-of-life care with our loved ones. Village programs to encourage members to complete advanced directives might involve bringing in an expert. We've recently done that at BMAV at Bethesda Metro Area Village with much success. Villages might also have members, because they've done it, with expertise, because they've done it, expertise in completing advanced directives, and take advantage of that homegrown talent. Advanced directives are so important in achieving a good death that I can imagine villages using various techniques to educate and help their members on them, including workshops, outside speakers, one-on-one coaching, and handouts. So let me pause for comments or questions or reactions. I'm looking in the chat room. I don't see anything new there. Anybody, just wave your hand. Anybody who wants to. We've got. It's interesting. We have. Oh, good. Yeah, Paula. Yes. So Paula, before you talk, Paula. Just interesting to note that we have 27. It's funny, isn't it? 65 people registered, but so far only 27 are here. But anyway, I'm delighted to have the 27 of you. And Paula, yes, please, you had a question.
Hi, Chris. I don't even know the right terminology for this, but the first time I had to deal with the death in the family, I realized I didn't know what to do. So as a topic, sort of the bureaucracy of managing a death. I mean, I don't mean family and friends. I mean, who do you call? What government agencies need to be notified?
Right.
I mean, I found, I eventually got walked through the Register of Wills and, and how do you manage Social Security notification and all of that. But sort of I don't know if I'm calling it the bureaucracy of managing someone's death. I don't know what to call it, but
right. No, is that
a topic that you've ever offered, or you are aware of people offering it?
Yes, it's a wonderful topic, a much needed topic. Paula, I'm grateful to you for raising it. It's something that people are puzzled about. Just a quick answer to the question is the most people, the first thing they do is call the funeral home, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that till later on. You can just cool the body with ice, and you can. Often people like just to stay with the body and tell stories and just marinate in the sacredness and inscrutability of the moment. But a lot of people just immediately call a funeral home, and the funeral home comes and gets the body. It can be very traumatic. So I encourage people just to not rush to do that. If they're in hospice, then the first thing to do is obviously call a hospice nurse, and someone needs to come and confirm the death and things like that. So this is a very interesting topic, what to do. And especially ever since the 1930s, we have lost our knowledge of what to do. Back before the 1930s, people were accustomed to this. They were used to dealing with people who are dying, because aunts and uncles and grandparents died routinely. And now we've given that out to third parties, and we are the weaker and the poorer for it. So Paula, you're raising a very good question. It's a great topic. So thank you. Okay, Mary Jo just gives my email in the chat, and she says you can find the videos of all 3 workshops together with a rich array of supportive text and materials on the WAVE website. She gives the WAVE website, so please all look at that. And Susan, especially for Susan Hamburger, because you're new, if you missed the first 2 sessions, so you'll find that very, very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, not at all. Please keep putting things in the chat, and just keep a scrap of paper by as you think of a question on anything. You can ask me about anything or comment on anything. Just make a note of it, and I'll stop frequently for questions and comments. Okay, so let's.
Chris, we do have a raised hand from Clarine.
Clarine, yes, I want to go back to the advanced directive. And yes,
Clarine, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Forgive me not seeing.
No, quite sorry, all right. Clarine. It's 2 screens to have to follow.
I'm paying attention now.
Yeah. We've had, lawyers who do all of those 5 documents and everything you need talk to us. And that's kind of an overview, but you just said one to talk specifically about how to do up an advanced directive is to bring in an expert. Who is that expert? I mean, a lawyer kind of just, I don't know, is it a
No,
lawyer who
no, I mean-
specializes in that, or?
I
is
mean,
it
an example would be Dr. Eleanor Tanno, T-A-N-N-O, and I can give you her email address if you have any, but she just gave a series of 3 works for us at the Bethesda Metro Area Village. They were excellent. They were open to other villages, and they were excellent. And she has now trained, I'm one of them, trained us to be to teach this. So getting an advanced directive is very important. Understanding its importance is very important. And one of the key things to understand with advanced directive is that the purpose of it is to stimulate discussion. So an advanced directive itself actually has limited value because you can't really anticipate all the nuances of medical care at the end of life. It's just impossible because it's so complicated. But what you can do is share your values and preferences with your loved ones. So when you cannot speak for yourself, your loved ones can talk for you in a knowledgeable way. They can say, my husband often said he did not want to have a mechanical ventilator. He's often said he did not want a peg feed. He said to me explicitly, don't ever do CPR on me. I've seen that done on old people, and now I'm an old person. I don't want that. So, writing an advanced directive to stimulate those discussions so loved ones know what we want is very important. So I can give you, I can recommend Clarine experts for you to talk about and train people in your village on how to write advanced directives.
Thank you.
Yeah, not at all, not at all. Thank you for the question. Okay, by the way, there's Mary Jo corrects a typo for those of you who want to note that she's corrected a typo in the WAVE website. You'll see that in the weather. And Tashi, oh yes, Tashi makes a very good point. She says it, and by it she's referring to advanced directive. It empowers you. Tashi, am I getting you right on this? Where's Tashi? Am I getting you right on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Tashi.
It's important for people to know how much it empowers them and the family.
Yeah, very good. I totally agree. Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah, please, all of you weigh in with comments and questions. This is great. So let's move on and talk about legacy letters, ethical wills, and memoirs. All these are ways of letting our loved ones know what is deep in our hearts. They reflect our values, wisdom, and convictions. Possible village programs in this area include forming a shared interest group, a SIG or special interest group that meets regularly to discuss drafts that we have written of our legacy letters. We can exchange drafts and help each other, to discuss drafts and to help each other by sharing experiences and learning. Perhaps a question or topic is posed for the meeting to give it some focus. A speaker may occasionally be invited, or the group could focus on a helpful essay. That's a lovely thing to do. Read an essay relevant to a legacy letter, or ethical will, or a memoir, and discuss it. Or they could meet and discuss a podcast, or they could meet and watch together a YouTube video on something relevant to memoirs and legacy letters and ethical wills, and then discuss that. So there are lots of ways of designing fun and enjoyable meetings. But legacy letters and ethical wills and memoirs are so important in terms of our legacy, and it helps us to feel that we have had when we die, a completed life and things are not left undone. Now, another topic that the villagers could meet on is on caregiving. Caregivers are a neglected and exhausted group of people, usually unpaid women, who number in America by the millions. Village programs might involve reaching out to members who are caregivers to see how they can be supported and what their particular needs are. I could also see an interest group created for caregivers to share their concerns and challenges and to help each other out, to give mutual support to each other. Outside speakers and outside experts and speakers on caregiving could be helpful. 2, we pause for comments, questions, or reactions. I'm looking in the chat.
I have a question.
Okay, Heidi, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry you all, but this is not the nicest thing to say. What if, you're because this is what happened. You're taking care of your father. He, with a lot of love, puts together an amazing trust. He's got wonderful friends from the village and church. Who also has put a lot of time into supporting him. And my brother came in, we all supported him. For him and us, his friends, it was wonderful. But it was like what was happening at the end there when the moment that he sort of dies, I have one sibling that comes in with fierce fighting temper that was just unreal. Just anybody who got in her way with the items of things. And then afterwards, the finances and selling everything before even people went through and took maybe what they wanted or appreciated his house, and then goes off, ignores the will or the trust, and then I guess she won't be able to do with the finances. But how do you deal with that kind of thing?
You mean with a
sibling that here, we put this all together sort of almost in an idealistic world that sounds all nice with all the ways and approaches, and the only concern or enemy you have is death itself. Yeah. And then you have one sister or one sibling.
Okay, so Heidi, let me interrupt you. Because we don't have a lot of time. So yeah. Heidi, very quick answer to you.
Okay.
Doctors call this, it's a well-known phenomenon, and doctors call this a seagull, when the seagull relative comes in. Seagull, because they come in and they defecate on everybody. And it's a real problem. It's often a brother or a relative who has been neglectful. And now they come and feel guilty and they rush in and say, do everything to save the patient, even though the advance directive may not say that. So it is a problem, but Heidi, rather than take up time now, feel free to call me or email me, and I'll advise you off the record on how to handle that. But it's a very good question. Yes, Mary Jo.
Thank you.
I did put it in the chat, and Heidi, perhaps you didn't hear my introduction. This is the last of our workshops, and it really isn't to discuss personal issues. The whole goal of this session is to help your village create a program that could then help you find the information that's needed to share with your members. So this is not intended to be an interpersonal discussion of end-of-life issues.
But Heidi, you've got my email in the chat room. Feel free to write to me or call me, and I'm happy to help you offline.
Okay.
Anne says I would like to follow up on Paula's question. Is there a roadmap of agencies and activities that must be contacted at the time of death, or shall I? Yes, there is, and I can help you with that. I won't dwell on it right now, but it's a very good question, Anne. Thank you. And Mary Jo says it's critical to bring print copies of the advance directive or your POST, your physician orders for life-saving treatment, or as in Maryland we actually call it MOST, but it's the same, identical. POST and MOST are identical. Even so, you may not be able to overcome the hospital's standard procedures to perform intrusive procedures. Best to avoid hospitals if at all possible. Yes, Mary Jo, thank you so much. You are so right on that. Hospitals are not good places for older patients for many reasons, which again, we can go into when we have time. and then Jean Downing says, will we discuss medical aid in dying? I'll touch on it, Jean, in a moment. We won't discuss medical aid in dying in detail in this meeting, but you are welcome to invite me to give a talk about that to your village. It's a very, very important issue, not yet legal in Maryland. We hope it'll become legal next year.
It's close. Yeah.
It was very close, but I think it will pass next year, and it's a very, very important. I support it, but other people don't, and it's a very, as you'll hear me say in a minute, it's a very fraught issue that we have to be very respectful when we talk about it with other people, because other people, particularly, so for example, Roman Catholics, are opposed to it. We want to be respectful of their position. Jean, thank you for raising medical aid in dying. Let me go on. Let's talk about palliative care, hospice, and death doulas. They can be a godsend to patients seeking help dealing with severe illnesses and other potential end-of-life issues. Village programs might include outside experts discussing palliative care, hospice care, and death doulas. For example, a village could invite a death doula, and I can give you names, a death doula or a palliative care doctor, for example, someone from Suburban Hospital, that's what we've done, a palliative care doctor to speak and describe what they do. A village could even consider retaining a death doula so members could quickly access them when needed. A village can supply its members with handouts and information on palliative care, finding and selecting a hospice, and why non-profit hospices are typically better, not always, but typically better than for-profit hospices. Villages could also help their members pose the right questions to hospices to find out the information needed to determine whether the hospice, this is very important, whether the hospice has the same values and standards as the patient. This is a very, very tricky area. We pause for comments or questions. You can go to the reaction box and you can put your hand up that way or wave to me. Liz, who brought up the question of death cafes earlier on, Liz says, I am a death doula and perform this function for the Capitol Hill Village. Liz, that is so admirable. I'm so admire that, and would that every village had someone like you as a member who could help out in that way. So thank you, Liz. That is great. Anybody else have a comment? You can ask about anything on your mind, or anything bothering you, or anything you want to ask about. Okay, not seeing anything, so I will press on. Let's discuss the right to die. We were just Jean mentioned medical aid in dying. Let's discuss the right to die, medical aid in dying, often shortened to MAID, medical aid in dying, and voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, often shortened to VSAID, voluntarily stopping eating and drinking. These are all ways to give patients more agency at the end of life. One of the problems with dying is we lose agency and autonomy, but these are ways of getting it back. But as I mentioned before, they are fraught and controversial issues. The ways of hastening death in the face of intractable and unbearable suffering include withholding or withdrawing unwanted life-sustaining treatments, voluntarily stopping eating and drinking, palliative or terminal sedation, or lethal medication, including medical aid in dying. Village programs might involve meetings to learn more about these issues, inviting outside speakers, such as someone from the Final Exit Network, sharing information and experiences and discussing members' worries and concerns. It's crucial that in such meetings that everyone is listened to and respected, because it's easy for people to have conflicting views on right to die laws that can lead to animosity and estrangement, the last thing we want in any village. Any comments? Here's a question. Okay, so here's a question from Paula. Thanks for following up, Anne, she says. I think you said it better than I did. What needs to be done when someone dies Who needs to be notified? What government agencies need to be dealt with? Social Security, death certificates, register of wills, etc., etc. Yes, Paula, excellent point, and thank you, both of you. Yeah, this is a very important issue. I'm just finishing up the manuscript of a book for Roman and Littlefield on how to achieve a good death, and I talk extensively just about one of the things I talk about in detail is this issue. That book's coming out next year. So thank you, Paula. Anybody else with a comment or question? Seeing none, but I see Doug Gaddis there. Hi, Doug. Great to see you. Thanks for being there. So let's go on. Let me press on here. Once a person has died, the most immediate issue is what to do with the body and how to dispose of it respectfully and responsibly. The three most popular ways to it are immediate burial, conventional burial with embalming, and flame cremation. Three newer and greener disposal methods are green burial, human composting, also known as natural organic reduction, and alkaline hydrolysis, also known as water cremation or biocremation. Green burial uses a biodegradable casket or shroud, no embalming, and no cement liner or vault. I think Kim Holcomb from the Green Burial Association of Maryland may be on the call, and she's an expert on this subject. On green burials, village programs might include a field trip to a nearby green burial ground like Serenity Ridge outside Baltimore or Reflection Park in Silver Spring. Other program ideas are in-person discussions over coffee and wine, or wine. Outside speakers like Kim Holcomb from GBAM, the Green Burial Association of America, or why embalming is best avoided, or watching a relevant video and discussing it, or another possible subject, finding and selecting how do you find and select green burial grounds. Other village programs might include inviting a funeral home director. We've done this in Bethesda, a funeral home director to talk to members about their services and how much they cost. A village could invite experts to speak about conservation burial, conventional burial, embalming, flame cremation, alkaline hydrolysis, human composting, and very important, home funerals, not to be just confused with funeral homes, home funerals. Villages can also arrange visits to a few funeral homes. We've done this. In fact, just in the last about month and a half ago, I took 10 of my friends in the Bethesda Metro Village. 10 of us went to the Pumphrey Funeral Home up on Wisconsin Avenue, and you know, they have a crematory, and they have they do embalming, and they have a room full of caskets, and we was there for an hour and a half. It was fascinating to learn, get an inside tour of this funeral home. So village can arrange visits to a few funeral homes so members can talk to the funeral director, assess their level of comfort with them, and do some pre-planning, not prepaying. Don't ever prepay, but pre-planning. In other words, help members shop around. Let me pause there for comments or questions. I'm looking in the chat room. I don't see anything in the chat room. Oh yes, good. Clarine, I see your hand up. Wonderful. Clarine, go ahead, please. Clarine, you need to unmute.
This question deals with bringing businesses in to speak. And you think of funeral homes, I mean, when you go and somebody dies, there's a big sales pitch, or it feels like a sales pitch, and they're pushing, and you really feel like you have to buy what they're presenting. Yeah. When you ask somebody to come in and give a talk, or go for a visit, how much do you have to be careful or worried that they're going to be sending you literature or emailing you, or whatever? Is there a way to rule that?
You have to be very careful, and I say explicitly to our speakers, please don't pitch anything, just talk. We want a presentation which is just as objective as possible. And so a lot of the speakers I bring in to Bethesda Metairie Village are just people like me, people without any interest. I mean, no financial interest. They're just. But you do occasionally we'll bring in someone with a financial interest, like a funeral director, or a death doula might be drumming up business. But generally, these people are good people. They know it's not wise to look like you're drumming up business. No one likes to be coerced or even coaxed into buying things they don't, So yes, it's something to be very conscious of. And most villages, at least our village, has strict rules about who can come. And we, in fact, don't allow. We have rules against people coming in to pitch things. We don't allow it. But it is true. Sometimes we have speakers who. So it's a tricky area, and one wants to be very, very careful. I'm glad you raised it, Clarine. You have to be, I think, very careful in who you invite to make sure you're not promoting goods and services that may not be the best. Yeah, you had a follow-up question.
So you would say that if we are doing the inviting, then we have more control. But if somebody wants to sends a request, can we talk to your group about whether it's hospice? Then probably not.
If someone calls you up and says, could we talk to your group about what we do, the hairs on your back of your neck should go up, and you should be very, very chary, CHARY, very chary.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because we don't. The last thing we want is the village to become mouthpieces for people with a vested interest in something or another, or making money. Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Oh, here's a question from Seal. Oh, I love Seal. Let me just see what she says here. Oh, well, first of all, Paula. Sorry, Seal. I'll come to you in 1 second. Paula. Oh, wait a minute. There's several questions I didn't. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, let me quickly deal with these. Linda, why not prepay? My expert on this is Josh Slocum, the former head of the Funeral Consumers Alliance, FCA. It was a wonderful organization. They say they are the Consumer Reports of funerals, and they say do not prepay because you might die in a different part of the country. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. You may die in a different part of the country. Your funeral home may go bankrupt. You may change your mind. You may decide that you want your body to go through human decomposting, not what they're offering you right now. Many reasons not to prepay. You might never get the money back. So no, don't prepay, just pre-plan. And Linda, I can talk about that in more detail another time. Okay, Linda, thank you. Mary Jo, what are the rough differences in cost between full embalmed burial, cremation, or green burial? Full embalmed burial can be anything $10,000 to $20,000, depending on the price of the casket. Cremation is fairly inexpensive, maybe $600. Green burial depends if you're in a conservation burial, what type of green burial exactly, but typically $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. If it's conservation burial, it might be $10,000, a little extra because you're paying there for conservation. But those are roughly the human composting, $7,000. Alkaline burial, maybe alkaline hydrolysis, maybe 5,000. The most inexpensive are immediate burial, maybe that's $400 or $500, and as I say, cremation, maybe $500 or $600. So, Mary Jo, hope that's helpful. Kay, could you also leave your body for science to Georgetown University? Absolutely. That is a wonderfully generous, magnanimous thing to do. We should all think about that if we can. So it's a great thing to do. Students need cadaver. How do you say that word?
Cadaver.
Cadaver, thank you. They need cadavers. And so that's a great thing to do, Kay. Thank you. Paula, have you heard of a group? Have you heard of a group called Funeral Consumers Alliance? Yes, have a big admiration for them. Josh Slocum has now left there. He's no longer executive director, but they have new leadership. They're doing very, very good. I'm on the board of Consumers Alliance for Maryland and Environments on the affiliate here in Maryland. They're a very good organization. SEAL. Now I come to SEAL, who's an AHA at home in Alexander. Chris, as someone who facilitates a monthly discussion group about end-of-life topics, can you share what you think is an effective size for a group? And how much time would you say you spend each month with preparing, outreach, and follow-up? So SEAL, I would say an effective size, there's no real limits, it actually depends on what you're discussing. But I would say 30, 40, 50 would be fine. But sometimes, if it's just 3 people or 4 people, that's great too. I think, you need a skilled facilitator who can then quickly be nimble on their feet and adapt to the size. But I think there's no limits. I've done meetings with 40, 50 people and smaller, and they're all work well. The key thing is the facilitator to be very generous and realize that their job is to bring out value from other people, not themselves. So to allow other people in the group, not the facilitator, but other people to shine and to star. So that's the key. It does require a skill in that. That's a skill. And you say, oh, how much time would you say you spend each month? Quite a bit of time. I'm very dedicated to this issue. And so I don't know how much, but I spend quite a bit of time preparing and outreach. And actually, see, I'll come back to this. I'll come to this a little later on the talk. I'll come back to this. Paula, ignore my question above. You just named the group I asked about. Would having a rep from them be a good? Yes, having a rep from them would be a great idea. That's a great idea, Paula. Okay, let me press on because we're running low on time because it's 3:48. Okay, so let's discuss ways to commemorate and celebrate a person's life after they have died. The primary purpose of a funeral or memorial service is to honor the deceased and comfort the living. Village programs might include creating a new shared interest group or special interest group or just group, whatever, to encourage members to celebrate transitions and rites of passage, including death. Life celebrations could be simple secular ceremonies and rituals that village members create and conduct themselves to build community, camaraderie, and a sense of belonging. Let's turn quickly to grief and mourning, which is often incredibly and unbearably painful. Painful. Coming to terms with death and the end of life can be intense and challenging. Village programs in this area might involve inviting grief experts to talk about the topic, members meeting to share their stories, and an active program to reach out to grieving members. Any quick comments or questions? Any comments or questions? Here's let's see. Sylvia says, leaving your body to science, the Anatomy Board of Maryland. Yes, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And she gives the address. Sylvia, thank you so much for sharing that. That's excellent. That's excellent information. Thank you, Sylvia. Okay, so let me mention, building on what I talked to SEAL about, let me mention a few things as we end up here. I've done at our village that have helped our Aging Well group thrive in case they might be helpful to you. I started the Aging Well SIG, Shared Interest Group SIG, in February 2017, over 6 years ago. I called it Aging, Death, and Dying. But after a couple of years, the board suggested the name might be off-putting to potential new members because of the words death and dying. So we changed the name to Aging Well. We didn't change the program, just the name. For the first 3 years, the Aging Well group met monthly at my house here in Bethesda. I invited outside speakers to talk about advanced directives, decluttering, hospice care, keeping fit, death doulas, how to be a super ager, reinventing retirement, cremation versus green barrels, leaving a legacy, finding meaning in old age, dying with dignity, and many other topics relating to aging well and end-of-life issues. The meetings were well attended, and the Aging Well SIG soon became the most popular group in our village. To encourage people to attend, and this is apropos SEAL's question, to encourage people to attend, I would spend 4 or 5 hours writing personal emails to all our members, warmly inviting them to attend. I'm sure this individual attention helped to bolster the audience numbers. Another thing my wife Gail and I did was to offer hot cider, wine, and small eats to people who came. This helped to give the event a social and fun atmosphere. People enjoyed coming to the meetings at our house because they were enjoyable. To bolster community spirit, I sent out a weekly e-newsletter to village members about aging, death, and dying, with quotes from scientists, poets, and others, as well as germane, humorous material. This newsletter has evolved over time into a monthly newsletter I've sent now about 55 of them, to members, in which I promote the upcoming Aging Well meeting. I reflect on some aspect of death and dying, and I include a carefully curated selection of humorous cartoons related to aging, death, and dying. By the way, if you're interested in receiving it, just send me a quick email and I will add you to the mailing list. When the pandemic hit in March of 2020, we began to meet by Zoom. I had an idea. Instead of having outside speakers, I decided to pose questions to the group so we could get to know each other better. These questions included: what are the most important lessons you learned from your parents or grandparents? What are the best ways to age successfully? What advice would you give the next generation about dealing with old age? What are some of your most unusual life experiences? When do you feel most alive? And what are your most treasured memories? Typically well over 30, sometimes 40 members would participate in these discussions. I asked people to write down their answers before the meeting because I discovered this significantly increased the quality of the discussions. After each meeting, I collected and edited all the contributions and created a report, usually over 10 pages long, that I shared with everyone in the village so that even those who couldn't attend the meetings could enjoy what people wrote and said. About 2 years ago, I refocused the Aging Well SIG on end-of-life issues. I sent an email to village members, and here is an expert. This email might be the most unusual invitation you've received from another village member. I would be honored if you would join me and engage in a conversation about death and dying, and more specifically, how to achieve a good death. This will not be a morbid conversation, I said in this email. This will not be a morbid conversation, but a very human one, where we consider what we want both in life and during its closure. The reason to have this conversation is simple. Our lives will be better, and so will the lives of our loved ones. Our reluctance to talk about death and dying can cause us all manner of pain, I wrote. Moreover, the denial of death leads us to postpone doing things we know we need to do. We'll consider and discuss questions like, what are the elements of a good death? What would an ideal end of life be for you? What are some of the tasks we might consider completing before dying? That's just a brief excerpt from that moment. Since sending that email, we've held meetings on the dying and deaths of our loved ones, how to age well, how to write an ethical will, the final exit network, advanced directives, green burials, death cleaning, death doulas, planning a funeral, hospice, how to lead a meaningful and successful life, how to write a memoir, and many other topics. Now, there are lots of, to the point that Liz made at the very beginning, there are lots of other ideas that I haven't tried yet. There are lots of other ideas that I haven't tried yet, which I think may be very promising, including holding, as Liz mentioned earlier, a death cafe, or hosting a death dinner, or creating a Before I Die digital wall, and creating a multi-generational project, a hat tip to Fran Lorenzi, a member of the village in Howard, creating a multi-generational project. So that I haven't done that either. And also other ideas I haven't tried yet are watching a film and then discussing it. That's a wonderful thing to do. For example, I've just seen the film A Man Called Otto, starring Tom Hanks about retirement and getting older. It's a fascinating film. And I can imagine a village watching that and then discussing it. Or the 1993 film, The Shadowlands, starring Anthony Hopkins and Deborah Winger, about the pain of grief. Let me pause there. It's 3:56. Let me pause for comments or questions. Mary Jo gives my email again. Thank you so much, Mary Jo. I don't see any other comments in the chat. Anybody want to wave to get my attention on anything? You're welcome to ask me anything. I hope this. Yes, Mary Jo.
So, do you have a feeling for what might be the framing, the content of your very first meeting? Was it some of those questions that you mentioned in your email, a bit more about getting to know each other? In other words, rather than dive right in to something about dying, is it better to spend time building the social glue between the people?
I think it is. And at the very first meeting I ever had back in February 2017, I gathered together about 20 people and I said to them, I want to do this. I want to start this group. What do you want to talk about? And I called on people. I didn't wait. I didn't say who liked to talk. I said, Bob, tell me why you've come to the meeting. What is on your mind? Fred, I'm so glad you're here. Why? What encouraged you to come? What is it about death and dying or aging that interests you? And then went around the room and got everybody. I just called on everybody, and of course I said to them, if you don't want to say anything, just say I'll pass. That's perfectly okay. But I called on people, and people were delighted to talk, And that way I take very careful notes, and I started actually designing the programs around what people wanted. So I think starting with a general meeting to find out what people want, where people are coming from. Some people will say, well, I just come because I'm interested. Some people will say, well, Chris, I'm a friend of yours. That's why I've come. Other people will say, yeah, no, my mother just died and I'm deeply, and I'm suffering from grief. I mean, the answers could be all over anything, it's fascinating to learn about it. And so I would start with that rather than go right into a workshop on advanced directive, for example. So is that, Mary Jo, am I answering your question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. And then Mary Jo gives the reminder of the videos and materials. Oh yes, and Jean down, bye Jean, has to go, and she says thank you. Great. So let me just finish by saying village programs on death and dying need not be morbid or gloomy. On the contrary, such conversations and activities can be, as I hope I've conveyed, can be joyful and fun. Village groups on aging, death, and dying are invaluable, in my opinion, because of the learning that occurs about how to achieve a good death, and because it helps village members get to know each other and bond. The mood and tone of the meetings are typically upbeat and fun. There is much camaraderie and humor. Death and dying village groups are as much about community and connection as they are about death and dying. By coming together in regular meetings where members discuss important matters, members make a genuine connection with others and create a sense of meaning, togetherness, and community. Such development truly exemplifies the mission of the village movement. And that is the end of my presentation. I'll hand the microphone back to Mary Jo. It's 3:59. Does anybody have a final question that they want to ask me? You can ask me anything. I think the maximum number was about 32 or 33 when we now have 30 people because we come to the end. And
right. Anyone else?
Well, there's a question from Karen. Yeah, quick. It's 3 o'clock, Karen.
Not a question, just applause for a great session, Chris.
Well,
thank you so much.
Carolyn, thank you so much. And Walt says, thank you, Chris and Mary Jo. I have to go. Wonderful set of presentations. Thank you, Walt. And Susan, thanks for all the ideas, Chris. It's a pleasure. Heidi, great presentation. Thank you so much. Tashi says, Chris, I want to thank you so much for inviting me today. I love your passion, kindness, and generosity. These are such nice comments, which I appreciate. I appreciate the compliments.
And Chris, I want to remind people that the purpose of this was to encourage all of you to go back to your villages and start thinking about what you'd like to do. And sometime probably in September, we will open this competition. And what you will be writing up for us is a proposal for what you want to do. Okay, so you've got at this point almost 3 months to work with your fellow village members and your leadership and dig deeply into yourself and say, well, what would we like to do and how would we like to do it? And put it down on paper and have everybody think about what you want to do, review it. You know, this is a proposal. So take time to really get a lot of buy-in to what you think you'd like to do, what you think you could do, and then be prepared to write it up. Now, once it opens in September, there will be probably a good 2 months between the time that the award application opens. And you can see precisely what is asked for in the application and the time that it's to be submitted. And then the award will be announced at our first quarterly meeting in 2024, usually about the third week in January. So I look forward to seeing a whole lot of wonderful proposals from all of your villages and hope that you'll find it a very meaningful venture.
And that was very well said. Thank you, Mary Jo. And can I just say thank you to all of you for coming, for being interested, and for being a great audience. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Okay. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.